So I always do some kind of I always record before we do anything
That's
because we
smart.
catch some pretty cool moments. Kind of warms people up as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All
Well,
right.
cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my gosh, that smells delicious.
It's got that little subtle pear flavor, right?
It's so good.
Yeah.
I haven't had really good tea in a while. I think I've been having Lipton or whatever,
Oh.
Tazo, Irish breakfasts and
We're
stuff
going to
like that.
restock on some nice teas this year.
You don't play.
Yeah, no, I don't
You
play. I don't
do
play.
not play with tea.
No.
Tea time is legit.
Legit. Anyways, welcome to another episode of Tea Time at PhysioX. For today, we have a very special guest, Rachel Lee. Rachel, I just want you to tell us just who you are. We can go down a list. Breathwork coach, ice plunge. I know you work with ice, and I know you did a lot for women's health. And you know what? Take it away. Give me the list of the things that you do.
So, in a nutshell, I help women heal their relationships and improve their relationships with their bodies through evidence-based fitness, nutrition, and mental health habits. So I take a very holistic approach because, as we've talked a little bit about this before, we like to treat the whole person, right? So I developed a 9-point framework. So anytime I work with anyone, I am going through 9 parts. So the first is movement for longevity, intuitive eating, sleep and recovery, self-compassion and gratitude, self-esteem and purpose, knowing your body and menstrual cycle, emotional coping is really, really important, resilience to stress, and then nurturing relationships. So that is the nutshell of my coaching practice. But I also do breath work and I do ice baths. It was so cool that we got connected that way.
That is how we got connected, by the way. So I was taking, I saw this ad. Well, actually, my roommate from my graduate school showed me. So, hey, there's this ice thing going on. I was like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. And I just went and I saw you. And I think you just have this really electric energy about you. You just go into the room, everyone is just awake. I was going in tired, I came out awake, right? And I'm sure everyone can hear this through your voice, just through the camera, that, it's contagious.
Oh, thank you.
But I want to go back to that 9-point that you talk about.
Yeah.
How do you come to that 9-point? It sounds like it wasn't just made up. You have developed over time to determine these 9 things. How do you get here?
Exactly. So it definitely has grown in number, first of all. 6 years ago, when I kind of started my journey as a fitness professional and nutrition coach, that's where I started, right? That's where most trainers start. Let's help people to move and let's help people eat right, and everything will be fine. So the reason I became a fitness coach and nutrition coach was because way back in college, trigger warning, about to discuss eating disorder. So if that is triggering for you, then no worries, skip ahead about 15 seconds. I developed binge eating disorder. I had gone through a really, really traumatic event in my last senior year of high school, and throughout college, it kind of caught up with me. And so I dealt with that, and I gained a lot of weight. I thought I kept having this overwhelming feeling that I had to cope with really strong emotions with food. And so throughout my early 20s, I was trying every way, shape, and form to lose that weight. And I was formally engaged, and at what would be my would-be wedding, I was trying to, in preparation for it, I was living in Philadelphia, and I was like, okay, I need to get a trainer and a nutrition coach. And so I got hooked up to this person, and they put me on a month-long, I kid you not, only smoothie and bone broth diet. Calorically, it was maybe a traditional 1,500 or something like that, but mentally, it was awful. And I failed it. I apparently was the only person to not only fail the diet, but I had paid up front for 3 months for that trainer, they had a no refund policy. I was so mad, I quit. I just quit because I felt like a failure. And then I kept trying every other method out there. And this is what I hear from so many women. They try every method out there, every app, every low carb, high carb, whatever, HIIT classes, running, marathons, and whatnot. And it's just this horrific game of trial and error. And I said, there has to be a better way to do this, especially for women. Because as I started researching, the way that we touched on this, I think, a little bit before too, in health and fitness research, predominantly male-dominated populations, and those conclusions have just been blanketly applied to women, and we work a little bit differently. So there has to be a different way to do this. So I became a NISM certified personal trainer and a precision nutrition level 1 coach. And I started coaching people, and after I coached myself, and I got the fittest I had ever been in my entire life. I was jacked.
Right.
But something was still missing. I was counting macros, but I still felt like there were things I couldn't eat. I still felt guilt around food. And I also wasn't as happy as I had expected I would be when I got to that dream body. Like I guess I thought my life will magically change. I will be on cloud 9 every single day, and I wasn't. And I said, okay, I'm healthy. Why am I not happy? And I said, okay, like my mom's a doctor. I know the relationship between mental health and health habits. What am I missing? So I just started asking why, and just kept asking why, over and over. Why do I still feel guilt around food? And it turned out that I had to learn how to eat intuitively. And then down the road, I was like, okay, why is my sleep still really bad? And so I dug into all the research about sleep and just how much we need it for not only physical health, but mental health too. And then when it came to the self-compassion part, I realized when I wasn't as happy as I thought I would be in this new body, I was like, oh, what people are saying about needing to love yourself, it's not your body. It is you. It is yourself. It is your spirit. It is everything not physical about you. And I never knew that was possible. I never knew that was even possible. No one had remotely taught me that. And so I was like, oh, I gotta learn how to love myself.
Yeah, so it
Where do we
sounds
start there?
Right, so it sounds like you have gone through a physical and emotional, but it sounds like you were going into a spiritual place to find yourself and to be able to get through this. Is that kind of where we're heading to right now? Because I hear a lot about self-love, and to be honest, I struggle with a lot of that because being raised from an Asian household is like, that's not a topic we discuss about because everything is just so concrete.
Yes.
You have grades, you have numbers, you have these concrete things to look at. There is no feeling, there is no spirit.
Yes.
With that. So how do you find yourself through that journey?
I found myself in a bucket of ice.
Now we get into the ice.
That's where ice baths come in.
It.
So I'm very comfortable talking about my personal journey because I know so many other women and men have been through similar emotional challenges. And so after I had broken off my former engagement, I was still coaching. I had my own business, and it was evolving. And I moved to Tulum, Mexico for a year, and I met some awesome people who were just like, "Hey, come ice bath with us." And I was like, "What? Why? We're in beautiful 86-degree weather. Why would we get cold? I just left Boston. Like, this sounds like a horrible idea." But it was a social thing, and I was looking to create community, create friends, and I'm an athlete. Like I was a track athlete, soccer athlete my whole life, and so I love doing competitive stuff. I love doing hard things. So I said, okay, like I'll prove myself, like I'll be one of the boys or something like that. And so I got in. And I was coached by my now dear friend and mentor, Jeff Dobney, and he coached me to be able to stay in for 6 minutes. And it was the first time in my entire life where I had been so stressed and been able to calm myself down and tell myself that I would be okay. Because even though Jeff was coaching me, I had to do the work myself. And so even though I got in to prove myself to honestly probably other people, the reason why I started ice bathing every day after that was because it was the only way I had ever found I could practice coping, emotional coping. It was something, emotional coping and self-compassion are not skills that we teach, but they are skills. And research shows that they have immense impacts on physical and mental health. The research on self-compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff is incredible. The more self-compassionate people are to themselves, the lower chronic disease rates we see. Like literally cardiovascular disease. Of course, mental health, but you wouldn't think that, right? It's not like a concrete kind of habit.
Yeah, so for the audience, I think it'd be nice to maybe even define what self-compassion really is.
Absolutely. So self-compassion is a way of showing love to yourself. And there's 3 core tenets. It is self-kindness. So that's a lot about your self-talk, right? Self-kindness over judgment. So
What are some examples of one versus the other?
yeah. So in terms of self-kindness, let's say you get like high school, you get a really bad grade, right? Instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, like I'm such a failure, like I'm so dumb," it would be, "Okay, well, this is hard, this stinks, but I'm still, I know I can still do this. Like I know I'm still worthy," which is a hard thing for people to say, but I know it's just a bad day. And to take it even more into the kind of adult world, maybe it's you don't get a job interview that you're really looking for. It's saying, I am still a hard worker. I'm still smart. I'm still kind. I'm still worthy of this job. And then the opposite of self-judgment would be like, I'm never gonna get a job ever again. And then the other part is common humanity. And this one is so important too, because how many times do you go through something and you kind of feel like maybe you feel like you can't talk to anyone about it, or it just feels like you're the only person in the world going through it at that one moment. And so common humanity is saying everyone goes through challenges. I'm not the first person to have gone through this. And then common humanity, and then the last one is, I want to say mindfulness, but it's self-kindness, common humanity, and it's something like mindfulness.
Right. But I would really want to kind of touch on that common humanity part of it, because it was very important for me too, because working with so many different people, so many different stories. And I was talking just about this with my team. The word sonder, do you know that word? Okay. That word had really kind of resonated with me in the last couple of years, since the start of this entire project, PhysioX. And it's the deep realization that everyone have his own complex life similar to yours, even strangers. They have this whole entire upbringing of complexities, of problems, of emotions, and it's all stored in this one person. And everyone have their own. And we don't think about it, but when you do, it's absolutely fascinating. But yet we all come together in this one place and we just share this human experience. And that really came, and that's the idea behind X.
Yeah.
It is the human that's inside of the teal.
Yeah.
Where we strip away all the different labels and everything that we use to describe ourselves. We are all sharing this common human experience. So that, I didn't know that was part of the study, but that was just something I come around to and really it kind of held a special place in my heart. So it's good to hear that, we're kind of on the right path.
Incredibly so. And I think how you guys treat the whole human. I feel like you were telling me how people's experiences come with them into your appointments. You're treating not only, okay, like how is your knee moving? How does you said like whole alignment move? How does that affect, how does your job affect how you're moving? Everything about that person and how like stress is stored in the body. And you probably see that in people's movement patterns every single day, and just adding to just people's experiences and their depth of being.
Yeah. And touching on stress right now, because I find everyone is dealing with so much stress all the time. And I've been telling people, you should try cold plunge. And I was just telling a client this just the other day. I'm like, have you tried, it's gonna sound weird, you ever tried cold plunging? It's like, no, but I think you should really try it. I'm actually going to do a cold plunge this weekend. And every morning now I've been doing a little bit of a cold shower, because I can relate to what you're saying. It is the moment when the cold hits you, I don't really have a choice but to maintain this presence or control over like my reaction. I can go and just lose it, or I can just bring it back. And then when I bring it back, my mind just goes, soup.
Yes, yes.
And it's not very often that my mind goes like that.
Right.
And we all need that, because there's so much stimulation in everything that we do. When do we find it quiet? When can we enjoy that moment of peace? And that's what ICE is doing for me, and that's why I'm seeking out people such as yourself to really spread that message and empower more people to know about this thing, because it's so helpful. Because there's some times when you have these thoughts and you can't think yourself out of it. You need something aggressive like cold, like ice, to come in and interfere with that cycle and just go boom, shut it.
So well said. 1,000,000% in agreement. Yesterday, and it was so funny. I really have been thinking a lot about why did I get in the first time versus why do I keep getting in. And yesterday, I just had a day where I was like, I need to see how long I can stay in. I realized that ice is now for me kind of my game. We all as humans choose our different games, choose our different ways of challenging ourselves. And ice is the way of practicing handling stress for me. And I think you're completely right too about just how much stress people have in this world. In physics, forgive me if I completely butcher this, my physics professor in college. I think it's the second law of thermodynamics. It's like increasing entropy in the world, increasing chaos. And there's increasing chaos in the world. We see that in the news every single day. And my heart just goes out to people, right? Like, I don't have kids. But there are people with, like, supporting families and just having increasing work hours. And how do you cope? How do you cope with that? And that's why I'm so fascinated in coping mechanisms. And they are rooted. They are your story. They are the depth of your being, because you develop them by how you watch people when you are growing up cope. It's an imitation behavior. So you will usually cope in the same ways that those who raised you cope. And
how do you change that though?
Here we go. So
I gotta take a sip of tea for this one.
Yeah. So the body, the nervous systems, right? So we have 3 different kind of regulatory systems that drive our behavior. The first is the threat protection system. Fight, or freeze. And that's the same thing these days as if you have a really like kind of stern email from your boss, or like like ages ago getting chased by a lion. Your body has the same response. The second system is your drive and excitement system. And that's like, okay, I need food. I need resources. Reproduction, power, territory, nourishment. Those getting things that we need. And the third system is the rest and contentment system. And this is when you are not only physically safe, but you are mentally not seeking. So what happens is, oftentimes the threat and protection system and the drive and excitement system are working very close together, and in modern society, overactivated because of dopamine chases. We're constantly seeking more dopamine. And with increasing stress levels, we're constantly trying to find ways to protect ourselves. So in order to retrain those three systems, you have to recognize, how am I coping with any stressor? Is this out of a fear, anger, maladaptive response? Maladaptive responses are things like denial, substance use, behavioral disengagement, or am I actually trying to release my emotion, process it, and solve the problem? Those are adaptive coping mechanisms. So the way to retrain it is to say, how am I coping? Am I actually dealing with emotion or not? And most of the time, people aren't dealing with emotion. And that's why I love ice bathing, because you can't lie in the ice. No matter what people are going through, your emotions rise to the surface. About 1 out of every 10 people I coach probably cries in the ice because they have so much built up, and they can finally release it.
That's very interesting that you say that people aren't dealing with emotions. Like, they're just going about the merry way. It's like, oh yeah, I'm like super depressed, but not right now. I'm just gonna have to get rid of this task or whatever. Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because we're so busy. There's no time. There's no time to deal with emotion. And in many Western cultures, and especially our individualistic society, a lot of times people are taught that emotion is bad. Emotion is a sign of weakness, when actually it's a tool. Emotion is an informational tool about what we need and what we want. And the better we can get at figuring out, okay, and this is mindfulness, right? This is breath work. This is ice bathing.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Oh yeah. It's how does the emotion manifest as sensation in my body? And then naming the emotion. There is a term, and the gentleman, Dr. Basil van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. There's a term in his book about the inability of some people to name emotion. Some people literally can't say. They might say they're stressed, but they cannot say, I am sad, I am angry, I am scared. And naming emotion is so crucial to being able to release it.
Wow. Just naming it.
Just
takes away some of
naming
its
it. And
power.
there is surface or secondary emotions. A lot of people, when they say they're stressed, stress isn't an emotion. You're overwhelmed. That's not an emotion. What's the primary emotion? And there's like 5 or 6. Happy, peaceful, surprised, scared, angry, sad.
I love that. I love that you can break it down to 6, so you can just choose. It's just wherever it is. Comes down to and it's, oh my God, when you said stress is not an emotion, that like a light bulb. Because I'm like, how you feel? I'm like, I'm stressed. And it's like, but that's not an emotion. Wow. I need a moment to really just kind of take that in right now, because I'm learning so much just from this conversation. It's so powerful. And
this is why I'm so passionate about education, is because I wonder what the world would be like if and I used to be a science teacher. I used to be a K through 12 science teacher. I taught at the middle school level and I taught at the high school level.
We're just unwrapping so much. What else do you
do? Just all we can go through it. But between my mom being a doctor and me working in schools, no one teaches you this.
I certainly wasn't taught.
Yeah.
This is news to me.
Yeah. Or let me rephrase it, there's no designated person assigned in the world to teach offspring, technically, standardized, appropriate, self-compassion, and emotional coping skills. Right. And I wonder what society would be like if everyone did.
Yeah. And I love that you just emphasize the word that you use. It's so powerful. And we use it all the time. For people with chronic pain, I would say, instead of saying pain, I want you to determine if this movement feels dangerous or does it feel safe. And if it feels safe, we can do more. If it feels dangerous, we might want to pause a little bit and take a step back. Instead of saying, oh, there's pain, I want to do it. It can be painful, but it cannot feel dangerous at the same time. So I'm really keen on the words that we use, and I really like to pick up on the words that someone say. Let's say someone say, oh yeah, how are you feeling today? I was out today, I feel some tightness. And oh, that's new, because the last couple of times you mentioned the word pain, but today is tightness. And that just changes everything. So I love that we're having a discussion on just word choices. And I think having a bigger, broader vocabulary is also very important. That kind of goes back to the education part of it.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of words do you have to use to describe certain things? And I was just actually, this is almost like off topic, but it's sort of related.
We're gonna go in a million different directions.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Now, so Dr. Adrian, my colleague, he speaks Spanish, I speak Chinese, and we're just saying there are some idiosyncrasies in language in which there are certain emotions that can only be described in the language of that culture. Yes. Like in Chinese, there are maybe different ways of saying shame that have that emotion. And I was like, I cannot express this emotion to you in English because it doesn't exist. So that's the power of vocabulary and the way it can define certain things. Now, I'm not sure do you speak another one? I think you speak another language,
This is
right?
hysterical because I speak, I am novice and not fluent, but I can carry on a casual conversation in Spanish. And I took a year of Mandarin, and I don't remember a lick.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I'm between you and Adrian.
Okay, perfect. Be right in the middle.
Right. But you're completely right. I mean, the first place people often go is idiomatic expressions, right? But contextual emotions in situations that might be cultural specific.
Yeah.
That is so key. That is so important.
Yeah, I forget which culture it was, but they have a word for when you eat so much, you're so full, but you still want to eat more because the food's so good. There's a word for that. And I was like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it was like a BuzzFeed article I saw or something, and it was like words in other languages that we don't have. Yeah.
And it's probably like 10 years ago that I read something like that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I want to move into the breathwork part of it.
Okay.
Because I know we have to ice.
Yes.
And by now, I think everyone after this podcast just jump into cold water in a lake somewhere and just experience for yourself. It's absolutely amazing.
Start with a cold shower.
Start
with a cold
first.
shower.
Yeah, maybe start with, listen to her, don't listen to me. She's an expert, I'm not. So, cold showers, breath work, where does that play in? And when did you find breath work for your own practice and when you start teaching it?
So, I found breath work because I'm bad at meditating.
Okay, this is great because I think a lot of people would say they're bad at meditating.
Yep.
So this is a great entry word. Breath
work, in my favorite way that I like to describe it to people, is meditation for ADHD tendencies. It is more active forms of meditation.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So basically, breath work is just intentional breathing, in intentional speed and duration and mechanism of every inhale, every exhale. And it can be fast, it can be slow, you can add in different holds, you can use different parts of your body. And it's so cool because every different type, I learned recently that there are, I thought there were maybe 5 different types of breath work, there are like 12 to 15.
Right.
Of course, and every different type has a different outcome or purpose. So you could have really slow, and this is what all the systematic reviews and meta-analyses say, is that some of the most effective breath work is the slower breath work to help with relaxation and help with relieving anxiety and stress. And then there's faster breath work and longer holds that you can actually do for athletics and for testing your CO2 tolerance. And then you can also do really kind of, how do I say this, holotropic breath work, which can be more to generate a feeling of euphoria. And it's so cool because we're all professionals at breath work. We've been on, how many years have you been on this earth? You're a professional at breathing, right? And so I found breath work because I was like, I don't like meditating. I was that person that if a YouTube video was going on for too long and someone hadn't talked, I'd keep looking at it to see like if the video had froze or something like that. So breath work is cool because you're cued pretty much every breath. And some of the examples of different types of breath work people might have you do are extended inhales and exhales. So you might have an inhale for a 4 count, an exhale for a 4 count. Maybe you double it. So you inhale for 8. Exhale for 8. Maybe you're doing a minute breath hold with Wim Hof breathing. There's so many different ways, and it's so cool because it's so flexible, so flexible. And the research shows that it's really effective. It's really effective because you are trained to come into your body, focus on your breath, and it helps you be present. It helps you get out of what I call the thought tornado. Which is stress, everything that we've talked about, right? It helps you get out of the thought tornado. And I love giving tips. So one of my favorite things to do before breath work, or whenever, maybe I'm about to go to sleep but my mind's really busy, a lot of people don't like journaling either. It's very formalized practice. Screw formalized practices.
Love it.
Screw.
Love it.
You can do, my favorite thing is called a brain dump. You take 60 seconds, maybe 120, and pen to paper. You can't use your phone because then you're on your phone and then you get distracted and then you're on Instagram for an hour and it doesn't work. So pen to paper, and you just dump your mind out. Think of a dump truck. You just pour in. Don't care about your writing. Don't care about organization of ideas, what your penmanship looks like, any thoughts that are spinning around your head, any rumination, anything you're trying to remember, people to call, emails to return. You just park it. Because what happens is our brains are really busy at night because we're trying to remember things or we're trying to solve problems. So the second you just park it somewhere, your brain is going to be like, oh, thank God. Thank goodness. So it's great. It's great for any time you're going into any type of mindfulness, because then you're able to be way more present too.
Right.
So brain dumping.
Brain dumping. You're literally just taking what's here, put it right here, and you just crumble it or whatever you need to do. Toss
Or
in the
maybe
trash.
save it because you need to remember it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If I remember it, right? And then I get to my staff, and then I'm just like, clear. So interesting. Now, what kind of breath work do you personally practice and you teach?
I really, really, really like slower breath work. So as you can probably tell, I'm a big mental health advocate. I think emotion and our regulation of it is so important. And I personally have been battling kind of anxiety and depression since I was 17.
Oh,
so
okay.
I have loved trying to figure out why. Like, why does my brain work like this? Why is this tool more effective than this tool? And so I love really slow breath work that just makes you feel safe. And that word safe is crucial to our vocabulary. And we don't think about it enough. We don't think about the importance of feeling safe. Because when we can make ourselves feel safe, we can use our prefrontal cortex better instead of our amygdala, which is the fear-based center of the brain. We're able to make better decisions, have better executive functioning, have better relationships. And so being able to make ourselves feel safe, super important. So nice, slow breath work. And I love being able to show people it, because seeing people when they come into a session, you could see just the tension in people's bodies, the energy, just where it's stuck, and then people are like a puddle
Yeah.
at the end. And you see this in your sessions too, right? Like when when people come out feeling better and they just feel like they can breathe better. And so that's one style. I also love breath work because you can kind of tailor whatever style it is even more to a more specific theme. So I was just working on a self-compassion breath work. I was working on a woman's health focused, a woman's focused breath work too. And so you can take your breath and put it into any more intentional purpose too. Your breath is super flexible.
I'm paused right here, and I just want to say Rachel is actually going to be doing breath work for us in a Lunar New Year event in February 24th, and you can sign up to take 30 minutes of full breath work class with Rachel on that day. I'm like super excited for it. I want to just take that class with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can open it up, and people will just be all over here.
Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be phenomenal. All right, I want to go back into the breath work for a little bit more, because I was first introduced to it really through Wim Hof.
Yes.
That was the big one.
Yep.
Justin, our good friend
Yeah.
Justin, that we connected online. But I was over there visiting him. He said, "Hey, you want to just do some breath work at some people's place?" And I'm like, "Great, this is the most California thing ever." It's like my first time in California, so it's like perfect. Went in there, like there was like maybe like 20 of us, like a place like this, on our head, like lying on our back, and we're going. And at some point, I feel my fingers starting to tingle. And then my mind just goes kind of blank. And then they said, hold. And then I held my breath. And I feel like I don't need to breathe. I can be here for like 2 minutes or something. I'm just floating. My thoughts are floating. And then when we finally wake up, when I wake up and when it's set up, I'm like, I feel high. I feel amazing. I feel like I just had like 2 cups of coffee without the jitters and all that comes with it. And then we went into an ice bath, and I didn't feel cold. That was when I was like, this is it. This is when I was sold, because I went in there and I'm like, I hate the cold.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it right here.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
And we had a control study, and this is how we know. My girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, she came with me. She went into the ice, 2 seconds, didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I go, what happened? She goes, I fell asleep during the breath class. And I'm like, okay. So we have that control right here. The breath plays a big role in our ability to control ourselves when it comes to these things that makes us feel like we need to go into a fight or flight. That's my thinking behind it.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's right. But it's really cool to see that, all right, this is not just me. This is actually has to do with that breath work that she did not do, and I did. And these are the results that came out of that. I think that's super cool.
It's super cool. And what's even more interesting is the studies that have been done on specifically Wim Hof style breath work in tandem with cold exposure.
Yes.
And it's really nice because this is also new, right? In the comparison of just modern day treatments and stuff like this is fresh. So we
cutting
are
edge.
It's really, and it's so cool because it's like cutting edge, but it's just our bodies, right? Just water. So we are barely scratching the surface of the mechanisms really going on in our bodies. But what the studies did say is that Wim Hof breath work, and if you haven't checked out Wim Hof, I super highly recommend that you watch. There's a Yes Theory documentary, and there's another one on YouTube. But it's super cool because Wim Hof style breath work is so much faster, right? It's very fast, and then it has these holds. So you basically go into a state of hypoxia. So
Let's let everyone know what that is for those who don't know.
But so basically, you're filling your body up with more and more carbon dioxide, but you've prepped yourself basically with tons of oxygen because you're taking these big inhales, and then you're holding on full. So when you're in that state, that's when you get that kind of like mental high. But the really cool part about Wim Hof breathwork going into cold is that because of the speed of the breath, you're generating heat. So it's really interesting because who knows, is it the timing? Is it like if you're going straight from Wim Hof breath work right into the ice? Is it how long does that heat last? Or is it also the ability to regulate your breath? I suspect it's both. And I want to reread that study. But it's so cool because even if you did slow breath work, you'd have a greater proprioception awareness of your body. You'd probably be able to calm yourself down, but the fast and the slow is super cool.
I love it because from what I understand, and I was speaking to Meryl about this, Meryl is, he's a local Wim Hof instructor.
Yes!
Meryl's coming here in March doing a Wim Hof class. Don't miss that one.
Yes,
We'll be
don't miss
announcing
that.
as
He's
well.
awesome.
Don't miss that one. He'll be here. So we just bringing all of this here. This is what we're trying to do.
This is treating the whole human. So super props to you.
Yeah, so I lost my train of thought already. What was he saying?
Meryl's coming in March.
Meryl's coming in March, yes. And he was saying, that he had the fast and the slow. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
That if you go really fast and you suddenly go down slow, it kind of gives you the ability to face a highly stimulating effect of maybe almost hitting a car or something. And this was his example, like got into a car accident, like not like a crazy one, but like that's something that would really jumps you up. But through that, he's able to quickly calm down versus if you don't have that practice, you might go up and you might stay up there for who knows how long, hours, maybe days. And the effect of that type of cortisol in your body for that long is not good. So practicing Wim Hof, practicing going up and then bring it back down quickly, I think that gives people better coping mechanisms.
Yes.
For when they deal with these stress.
Yeah. And I mean, so much we could go off on there, just the effects of chronic stress on the body, just that prolonged cortisol response relates to every single chronic illness out there, higher rates of that. But also when we're talking of just being able to quickly suppress, it's such a powerful thing to be able to catch yourself. And
catch yourself, that's right.
Yeah, but also when it comes back to coping mechanisms, I'm so fascinated with our use of substances, alcohol, drugs, increasing marijuana legalization, and as someone who I during COVID I got a sommelier certificate because I was like, we're drinking wine, I might as well learn about it.
Okay.
But as in American culture, drinking is so normal. So I just love asking, how do we use it? Why do we use it? And then I got to my own relationship with alcohol. I said, how am I using it? Why am I using it? And I realized, and this was a huge, huge, huge moment when I decided I need to ice bath every single day, is because we use substances to numb. We use substances to escape emotion. And so the coolest part about Wim Hof breathwork is you can get that euphoria. You can get that little escapist high on air. No substances. And with no harm to your REM sleep, no harm to your HRV, anything like that. In fact, just benefits to it. That's why I think, especially Wim Hof style, holotropic breathwork is so revolutionary.
Definition, holotropic breathwork and Wim Hof. Are they the same thing or are they different?
So this I have a suspicion about this, but I'm not 100% confident. I'm always happy to, as a lifelong student, happy to admit when I don't know. So holotropic breathwork is just anything that gives you that euphoria. You can get to it in a lot of different ways. The Wim Hof method is pretty specific. It's 30 really fast exhales to build up your oxygen, really strong inhales, and then followed by a 2-minute hold, and then repeat that pattern 2 more times for a total of 3 rounds. So that's Wim Hof style breath work. But any type of rapid paced breath work, I think will get you there. I might be wrong. Do you know a different definition for it?
No, okay. I'm learning from you.
Okay. Don't quote me on that.
Well, I won't. No worries. I won't. We can double check with Meryl for that.
Yeah.
But holotropic is what again?
I believe it's just faster.
Okay.
Faster, any type of faster style or any type that gets you to that euphoria.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now I heard this. Not sure if you know anything about this. There's a certain style of breathwork, maybe it's holotropic, I don't know, that you can even get you to a psychedelic state.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Holotropic?
I believe, I really need to go double check that. But there definitely are ways of doing that. And it's so crazy because you think of just one breath, right? Like how long does it take? But you can do breath work for any length of time. And so imagine if you're doing some of these really intense holds and you're changing your oxygen and CO2 levels, then your people do get to psychedelic states. And
That's so crazy.
it's fascinating. And when we think about what treatments for chronic depression are with psychedelics, currently more in the United States, who knows what the potential is with breath work down there.
I saw ketamine had just been legalized for
Yeah.
it. And I've heard from people I know, first-hand experience, have been very powerful
Really?
in overcoming barriers that
Yeah.
maybe just that extra push to break through and really find that place they're looking for that they
Yes.
don't even know how to open the doors to. Maybe just another lock.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think you probably find this in your practice too. I find a lot of people just don't know how good they can feel.
Oh, yeah, I can go all day
Right?
about that because people come to our stores and it's like, hey, I'm just old. I'm just going to feel like this the whole time.
Yeah.
Until we show them what's it feel like to plant that foot on the ground and feel grounded and feel safe in that stance. And they go, oh, my body just starts to melt. The tension starts to melt because
Yes.
why are muscles tense? It's the reaction to trying to hold something because it doesn't feel safe. And if we can give you that safety in the way you move, guess what? Your muscles aren't going to be tense anymore because it no longer has a reason to be tense. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with the body is that they're looking at a muscle that's tense needs to be stretched out, but they don't go deeper to ask why is it tense. A muscle that's painful needs to rest. I'm like, yeah, I get it, there's some injury, but why was it injured? Why was it being overworked? What is this whole ecosystem telling us? We gotta listen to these signs and not just chase after these symptoms. But I can go on a tangent all day about that.
Right? Right? And the word that I like to really use with clients when I'm working with them for the first time to give them a sense of why working on all 9 points for me is so important is the term allostatic load. It is the total intensity and sum of all the stressors in your life. And so when you're talking about an ecosystem with your allostatic load, you not only have your body, the stressors of your body, maybe you're sick, maybe you have an injury, maybe in terms of mental, emotional, in terms of environmental, right? There's so many different things that we carry and that contribute to the end product and the state of that product and how we're doing. So I love that you use the word ecosystem because I think we need more words in health vocabulary beyond holistic. Because holistic means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Yeah.
It can mean anything. So talk to me back about you were 17 and you were dealing with anxiety, depression. You were just so curious about. So you approached it not as like an emotionally charged way, but you approached it in a more of a curious way. Like, why am I experiencing these things? So you are just like a scholar at heart, I think. You just love to learn and learn, right? Now, with all of that, how are you doing with your anxiety and your depression present day, having gone through that journey?
I'm so grateful that you asked me that question because it's something that I love talking about and it's something I love reflecting on too. So right now, present day, I love the day that I learned that I don't have anxiety. When you give it a more temporal vocabulary, like I don't have anxiety, I feel anxious. That gives
I love that.
and it's about identity. That's why I work with self-esteem and purpose, is because how do you identify yourself?
I'm getting goosebumps because I love that topic.
Yeah. How do you identify yourself? How does that reflect on your self-beliefs? How I see myself as a person, as someone who has anxiety versus someone who feels anxious, totally different, right? So being very careful with my vocabulary. And I think it's so important for people to know that you might never know why you have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression. You might never know why. And that was something I had to come to terms with as well. Because as someone who loves chasing answers, I realized, okay, I might never know I might never have a nice little pretty explanation about why this is. But it doesn't mean I can't change how I cope with it. So we talked about making sure the way I talk about it to myself is temporal. Then the other thing is, okay, knowing if I feel this way, I can make decisions about how I cope. So having anxiety, some of the ways I used to cope perpetuated my anxiety, right?
How?
Behavioral disengagement. So that's like my favorite example of that is scrolling. That is, let's say there's a problem. There's something I'm anxious about. I'm like, okay, like I can't deal with it right now. And you might get distracted by your phone. That's your brain choosing to disengage with the problem. Scroll. The problem is still there. Your brain is still worried about it. So instead of behaviorally disengaging from it, being like, okay, let me acknowledge to myself. And sometimes it's a very bit like step by step hand-holding process that I have to do with myself. Like, Rachel, okay, how do you feel about this? What is the problem that you have to do? How can you break down the problem into something more manageable that you feel safe solving? So realizing how I'm coping, making sure I am being honest with myself, and making sure I'm taking time for myself. So I know that in order for me to feel the least anxiety, I have to take an ice bath every day. I have to work out. I have to I enjoy fueling my body with foods that give me energy. I also love treat foods. Like, I love chocolate. Carlo's Bakery chocolate cake is like my favorite thing in the whole wide world. But making sure I'm not using food as a coping mechanism. So being very, very aware of how I'm feeling, how I'm handling it, and how I'm talking to myself. And making sure I have habits every single day that I know reduce my overall feelings of anxiety. So it's super cool because the way that I ended up cutting out drinking completely is because I realized I was getting anxious the day after I had a single glass of wine. I noticed my anxiety was greater. I noticed it actually through my Whoop, because they have like a journal, and you're able to say like, okay, I had this drink at this time, and you're able to. I also picked out all the mental health, like I feel anxious, I feel nervous, and then that was an insight that it saw, which was really, really cool. So you just have. I think the key to having better outcomes with these skyrocketing rates of anxiety and depression is allowing people and giving them the tools to better know themselves and better know maybe not all of the why, but at least a little bit of it.
No, I love that so much, especially when you start talking about how you define yourself, how do you label yourself. For me, it's so big for the people that I see. One of the things that we do here is that we don't give like diagnosis that you see, like hip impingement, herniated disc, whatever. We don't say that really, because that doesn't do the person any good. Because now they associate themselves with having this diagnosis.
Yes.
I am a person with a hip impingement. I am a person with a herniated disc, and it's going to change the way they interact with the world.
Yes.
They're gonna think that things that's normally safe, they're gonna interpret it as this is no longer safe because of the way I identified with myself. So in some roundabout way of what we do, we're trying to get people to feel more authentic to who they really are.
Yes.
And not associate themselves with these labels that doesn't really serve them at all. And you're doing the same thing, but you're using it with anxiety, with depression. And I think it's so powerful for someone to say, hey, look, I have anxiety versus I feel anxious. My God, that sentence, if you can say that sentence differently to yourself,
Yeah.
that one thing I think can really change someone's life. That is so
100%.
powerful. I'm learning so much from you. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, the other day, did I tell you this? I accidentally found the character count limit to a Google Doc.
I think I saw that in your story.
Yeah, because I've been adding my
must be-
research to the same Google Doc for 3 years before it was like all over the place. And it's 1.3 million.
Don't share that with me. I won't read it. But I love that you really take everything that you do and you put research behind all of it. Now, I think for us to uncover all the stuff that you actually do, I think will probably take us another couple more podcasts.
Yeah.
Right? But even from this conversation alone, I think people can really start to understand the complexity and how much detail and how much passion you have in the work that you do to helping other people, especially women. And we didn't even touch on the menstrual
Oh my
stripe
gosh,
cycle. We didn't even go there yet, right? I'm going to invite you back for another podcast.
Sounds